We are COLDPLAY.
Hello, we are COLDPLAY.
Hello, we are COLDPLAY.
They are the only UK band since the Beatles to break straight into the US top 10 with their new single. Their story is coming up in the next hour here on Radio 2. I'm Steve Lamacq and this is Hello, we are COLDPLAY.
Student four-piece or something like that in the big-hearted Jeff Buckley mould.
Yeah.
Bigger, Stronger was their no-key debut release. Expect copies of it to be worth a small mortgage come Christmas.
I'll always be waiting for you.
I said, you've got to listen to this song. And he was like, no, I can't. And I was like, no, stop. Just stop and listen to this song. And I put it on, and he was like, this is good.
We've got one life here, and we've got one opportunity, and why can't we try and be the Beatles?
I think that they always write songs that people feel have been written about them.
We had Time Off, my most rock and roll moment. When it came in the charts at number 4, I was in a swimming pool in the south of France.
Look at the stars, look how they shine for you, and all the things that you do.
Our story begins in London, where all 4 of the bands who would become COLDPLAY were studying at the University College.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm the singer in the band COLDPLAY.
Hello, I'm Will, and I play the drums in COLDPLAY.
The first 2 members of COLDPLAY ever to play together was Will and myself, because we met on a coach going to a sports game, and he said, I play guitar. I said, well, I play guitar, and there was a bit of a standoff. And then we went back home and he showed me how to play some Eric Clapton songs. And then a year later, he joined COLDPLAY.
We went busking, actually, in Covent Garden.
We went busking. The first performance ever from 2 couple of people was me and Will, where we didn't get any money, but we did get moved along.
By the police. We sang Mrs. Robinson, Norwegian Wood.
The Bare Necessities from the Jungle Book.
That's right.
Just the bare necessities.
Then we got moved on.
Hello, what's going on here? Just a simple bare necessities. Excuse me, lads. The simple bare necessities. Lads. Off you go, come on.
Thankfully, the Jungle Book wasn't the band's only source of inspiration.
And within the reach of my hand, she sounds.
I knew that I loved a-ha's first album, Hunting High and Low, and I've been listening to that again recently, and I can now understand why I got so into music because of it, because it's a collection of incredible songs. I listened to that and Bad by Michael Jackson.
I just listened to my parents' record collection, really, when I was young. A lot of 60s Beatles and Stones and Motown, and a lot of Irish music as well, a lot of folk music and country music.
Hello, I'm Johnny and I play guitar in COLDPLAY.
Hello, I'm Guy and I play bass in COLDPLAY.
I was listening to the Verve a lot and the Beatles and
Jeff Buckley and
Yeah.
Radiohead were sort of around then as well. In Johnny's flat, there seemed to be one album that was constantly on, which was always played by his housemate, which was Moon Safari by Air.
Yeah, we must have listened to that about a million times.
Guitar strumming friend Will Champion still wasn't a member of the group, but the guys did seek his advice when they needed some vital percussion. Johnny Buckland picks up the story.
We were making some demos, but we needed a drummer. We knew this guy was a drummer who lived with Will. And so we went round to his house and he'd set up this drum kit, but he just wasn't in. You know, he wasn't there. So where the hell is he? You know, what are we going to do? So another of Will's friends, who was a drummer, was also there. So we asked him to drum on it. He said, oh yeah, great. And Will was sort of sat in the corner, you know. So we got this guy to drum on it. He did one song, but then he had to leave because he had somewhere to go. And so we had one more song. We were like, what the hell are we going to do? I mean, and Will said, oh yeah, maybe I could play some. And he did this one roll, and it was just, all right, you're in.
So, with all 4 members in place, the band just needed a name.
We actually had a gig booked in a little venue in Camden. Even though we'd secured our place in this pub venue to play the gig, we didn't actually have a name. So it was one of those situations, I think, where we had to come up with a name really quick.
And it is possibly one of the worst names ever.
And that name was Starfish, and that was still better than the other names they'd rejected.
Big fat noises.
Stepney Green.
The name Coldplay, or the Coldplay, would soon be inherited.
Our friend Tim was in a band and they could never decide upon a name. Coldplay was one of the names that I think they were called for a day and discarded.
The rest of his band didn't like it, so he said, "Oh, you can have it."
It would be friend cum manager Phil Harvey who would help Coldplay kick-start their first recording sessions. Him and an unscrupulous London gig promoter, Chris and Will.
Phil was a school friend of Chris's, and was when we started out, we had booked a few gigs, and with this local kind of promoter in Camden, he said, "I think you guys are ready to play Dingwalls now." And we were like, "Whoa, that's like extraordinary," because we'd been up there.
That was like Wembley for us.
Yeah, it's like
living in Camden.
Maybe 300 or 500 people, maybe.
We couldn't conceive of that amount of
it was
people.
Extraordinary. So he said, "So it'll just be you and another band." I remember him saying, "You'll get 50p a flyer, and however many people you bring in, what have you." So it came about a week before we were about to play, and I phoned him up and said, "Right, are we still on for this?" He said, "Yeah, no problem. But a slight change of plan. There are now 8 bands playing. You'll be on at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and you won't get any money at all." And so we were like, it's not as good, is it? Phil had come to a few of our concerts and was like really enthusiastic, and was a great kind of a great friend, and really always been really kind of enthused about the band. He said, "I'll pay for you to hire out Dingwalls on the next night," the night after this shark was putting on this rotter of a gig. So he said, "Yeah, well, we'll pay for it. It's like £400 or something, and then we'll charge like £5 to get in. And if we just fly out everyone, then we should make our money back." So we did. We hired the gig and did it, and it was brilliant when loads of people came.
All 4 of us walked around with these chunks of flyers based on this painting of a beach, funnily enough.
Not only did we make enough money to pay for it, we actually made some more money as well, which we put towards recording an EP, and then Phil stumped up the rest. Then we went into this little studio called Sink City in Tottenham.
Johnny Buckland again.
We'd only been together probably about 3 months or something, 4 months, and so we were very excitable, and we thought we could go in and do about 10 tracks in a day, and thought that was the way it went, but we only managed 3. We had a drum kit with broken cymbals, and it just came out really well. I've no idea why.
We did them all in a day, and then came back a few weeks later and finished off 3 of them, didn't we? And then turned it into an EP.
The Safety EP would be the product of those Tottenham rehearsal studio sessions.
It was like being thrown in at the deep end, because it was like we'd tried to record on a 4-track recorder before, but they just seemed so fiddly and you could never really get any good sounds out of them, so we were really excited. We did think we were going to go in there in a day, having never been in a recording studio before, and make Dark Side of the Moon.
Coldplay would soon come to many other people's attention when they were invited to play at a music industry showcase in Manchester. Chris Martin again.
Me and John were working as cleaners in Euston, and I got a letter and it said, "Coldplay's been accepted for In the City," and I basically fainted, because this was the biggest deal that had ever happened. And it turned out Phil had got in contact, he'd done it somehow. He'd got us into this festival. Literally the 50th band out of 50, and we were playing in this Cuban cafe. We'd been rehearsing at my mum and dad's house.
We got the train up, and Johnny and my friend Chris had
driven left his pedals.
Johnny was forgetting to bring. He had a rucksack with high-tech touring equipment. He had a rucksack full of his pedals, and he left it. So I think.
So my mum had a lorry driver friend who drove him to
No, did she get
Blackburn?
No, Darlington.
Darlington, yeah. So the pedals all came up on a lorry to Darlington. We were in Manchester trying to work out where this Cuban cafe was. It was very ramshackle. It was the first time we'd ever stayed in a hotel at all.
It was crazy.
It was like Shea Stadium. We were on tour because we were staying in a hotel, and we were sharing like one room.
And no one came.
Except Debs.
My name's Debs Wild, and I'm the editor of COLDPLAY.com, which came around by accident because I actually met the band back in 1998 when they were just 4 poor students in the UCL, and I was working as a scout for a major label at the time, and I was on one of my jollies up to in the city in Manchester when I came across this little band, the COLDPLAY. So I trotted along in the rain, as it always is in Manchester. The band had just started, and it was actually a quiet moment in the set, and I remember just straight away thinking, wow, what, that voice is amazing. To be honest, I actually paid more attention to what I was listening to than, you know, what they looked like or anything like that. I was just completely jaw-droppingly amazed. And I actually stayed for the full set, which is unheard of in the city. You know, the 16 bands playing a night, and you usually do about 13. And that was the start of it, really. The start of a love affair for me.
She lit one of the first sparks, and
that was a really selfless gesture, what she did, because she said, look, I don't want to sign you because I don't think we're right. And she put us in contact with a few people that she thought would, you know, might be able to help us out.
Well, I introduced them to Gavin Maud at Russell's Solicitors because I knew that he would speak a really good language to them and not bombard them with scary legal things, and they just hit it off really well. And although I was at the same time played it to Caroline Ellery at BMG Publishing because she's my best friend, because I actually thought I was going insane. I thought, why is everyone in the world not screaming Coldplay from the top of the roof? I just didn't understand. I thought I was actually going slightly mad. And she loved it as well. And it all kind of happened then. So I had a little part to play, but sadly not really. I wished I'd have been able to sign them.
And through her, all these other sparks started igniting, which ended up in Simon Williams coming to see us.
Simon Williams would release the Brothers and Sisters EP on his influential Fierce Panda record label. It sounded like this.
Time of your lives. Break down, gotta spread love around, gotta spread it around. Brothers and sisters, feel fine. It's the time of your lives. It's the time of your lives. There's no
when he said, I want to put a record up by you, it didn't take me by surprise so much because in the NME of 1998 into 1999, there was like, I remember this, I mean, there's so many key moments. Every moment is a key moment.
I know what you're going to say.
But I was in the bathroom in my mum and dad's house. I won't tell you what I was doing, but I was reading the NME and it said 20 new bands for 1999. And I said, well, maybe we'll recognise some of these bands because we were in the city. Maybe I'll know. And sure enough, there was Muse, and there was Elbow, and there was Bellatrix, and then there was Coldplay. And I was like, excuse me? I mean, I couldn't believe it. You're talking about a band who we used to cut out our name if it appeared in the listings of NME and put it on our wall of...
We had the wall of...
Our wall of fame, you know, charting our rise, which we've since lost. And I called Will, and I called John, I called Phil and Guy, and you know...
It said, and I remember that it said something like, expect copies of...
Yeah, I'd say it said student 4-piece, something like that, in the big-hearted Jeff Buckley mould.
Yeah.
Bigger, Stronger was their no-key debut release.
I remember that.
Expect copies of it to be worth a small mortgage come Christmas.
We'd planned to get signed within 5 gigs. We thought that was how long it would take us, and it took 10, I think. We didn't ever get frustrated, did we?
It's quite funny looking back on it because we were very sort of calculated about this, how we were going to do this thing. We had a sort of a big wall chart thing in Johnny's flat where we used to keep all of our sort of little flyers and bits of mentions in the NME, and we also had this ridiculously sort of pompous list, like 1 to 10 about what we were going to do, and it was like number 10 was get record deal. And the funny thing is we did actually systematically go through that list and tick things off.
Debs Wild again.
There was this very strange conversation we had in the very early days of if you could pick any label to sign to, who would you sign to, you know, in a fantasy world? And of course, being Coldplay, they said, well, you, of course. And I said, well, that's very nice, but really, realistically, who? And the two labels were Parlophone, because of the Beatles and Radiohead, and we did have a kind of Columbia conversation because of Jeff Buckley.
The man who signed Coldplay to Parlophone was A&R man Dan Keeling.
Generally, they were playing around Camden and around North London quite a lot. At the time, they're at University College London, and I'd been to see them a couple of times. One time, really late at night at Cairo Jack's, which was an Egyptian kind of theme bar in central London. I thought they were okay. I thought Chris Martin definitely had a stage presence and there was something about him, but as far as their songs were concerned, they still had a lot of work to do, so I kind of left it for a while. And eventually, after another 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, someone said to me, my friend Caroline Ellery, who signed their publishing in Manchester, you should check them out again. I wasn't convinced at this at first, but having listened to their next demo, I kind of felt that they'd come on a long, long way and in such a short space of time, and that was really, really impressive. So had to kind of backtrack a bit and spent a little while trying to convince the band that Parlophone was the right label for them.
Label boss, which means Coldplay's boss, Miles Leonard.
They were kind of an odd bunch. What we loved about them was the fact that they actually didn't look like any other band, and I think that they didn't really sound like any other band. And at first, your natural instinct is to kind of, you know, put somebody into an area, bracket or genre, but I guess the beauty of Coldplay is that was impossible. They were just themselves. You know, they had references, and obviously, like any band does, but their image and their sound was unique to them, and I guess that's what the best bands have, is something that's just purely unique to them.
Come on, Miles, they can't have been that great.
I mean, it's such a small thing, you know, you wouldn't put you off a band because bands develop, but they certainly had one of the most bizarrest of taste in jumpers, and especially Chris did as well, and he looked like, you know, the classic sort of student, you know, with the big, massive, baggy jumpers, but it's not enough to put you off from signing a band, but it was certainly quite funny, at least in the beginning, and especially with his great huge perm, you know, curly hair, massive curly hair that he had as well. It was a real character on stage.
We got signed in Trafalgar Square on a little picnic table or something, and yeah, we didn't really have a clue what was going on. I mean, it was very strange. We were suddenly entering a whole new world, and you realise that you've been working towards getting signed, and then you kind of realise that actually means nothing. And you've really got to write an album and do that. And so we went into the recording studio that summer, and we spent 7 weeks with probably absolutely no idea of what we were doing.
Coldplay's first single would be Shiver, and the band would embark on their first tour.
It was like a Woolworths pick and mix type tour, you know, but picking and mixing like an avocado, a drum, a dog, and a pack of biscuits, like the most extraordinary mixture of things you could ever imagine.
Because obviously we had been playing in kind of small pubs and club gigs, and then you read in the back of the NME the listings, and it says things like Leicester de Montfort Hall, and you think, wow, that place must be enormous. And then Oxford Brookes University, and we were playing all these places that were, you know, maybe 1,200 or 1,500 people as opposed to like 300. And that felt like a really huge step, but even though we were first on, and there was one gig, I think it was at Leicester, where they made us go on stage, and they hadn't let anyone in yet.
That happened to us twice. It also happened to us. The reason why we've never played Reading and Leeds again is because the time we played Reading and Leeds, they made us play before they'd open the gates.
11:45 on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, before Top Loader, and they said, on you go. So on we went. We were like, well, but there's nobody here. And they said, well, you just got to get on with it. So we were playing, and we got to like song 3, and some people arrived.
Former Top Loader guitarist Dan Hipgrave remembers the relentless grind of those tours.
We were working very hard to get a record deal, likewise, I'm sure they were too. And you play as many gigs as you possibly can at that time, you know, for experience and also to get noticed. And I must have seen a good, you know, that year, by that August, I probably had seen a good sort of 50, 100 bands, like, at our level. And no one made an impact like they did for me. I mean, you could tell there was something that set them from the pack, you know. We spent a good 18 months basically bumping into each other, either being headliners or them supporting us. It was for about 2 years maybe. I don't think we really got to know each other really well until we did the Rolling Stone magazine tour of Germany together, which was a really interesting tour because it was only a 2.5 week tour. And this is at the time where, you know, Coldplay was shifting a lot of parachutes. They were doing very well. I would say they were big. And they said, oh, well, you know, Coldplay were on the tour, but you're headlining. Because at the time, Dancing in the Moonlight was absolute phenomenon around the world, and especially in Germany. It was just crazily big in Germany. So I think that rather than quality, because I do believe they probably should have gone on above us, we even suggested to Coldplay at the time. I remember having a conversation with Chris saying that, you know, if you want, we can rotate it, because we're really not that. It's not about who goes where. And he was a bit like, well, no, you guys, you go ahead, you know, you be the big rock stars, you know, whatever.
Well, we kept going on tour and then going to record and going on tour. We were supposed to record the album in 2 weeks, but as with everything we say we're going to do in 2 weeks, it takes a long time.
With the comfort of a record deal and the luxury of studio time, the band's repertoire could grow. Dan Keeling.
They didn't have any of their hits. They had Shiver, actually, the first proper single we put out on Parlophone, but they wrote Yellow when they were recording the album, and they wrote Trouble when they were recording the album as well, so we didn't have the singles lined up ready to go. We just knew they were going to make a great album. So it's always nice that they wrote great singles in the studio, but that wasn't a certainty.
You know how much I need you, but you never even see me.
Yellow, I think, was that song that was always waiting to happen. You know, Shiver was before, and I loved that. But the second you heard Yellow, I think I had the same reaction as probably Dan and everybody else was, that's the one, that's the one.
I think that they always write songs that people feel have been written about them. And when I listen to Chris and his lyrics, they're kind of almost like Greek tragedy sometimes, or mini Greek pop song tragedies, you know, or talking about love and just very kind of universal kind of subjects. It's like U2, when you listen to U2, the songs are written and they're kind of dramatic, but at the same time they're very intimate.
It was written in Rockfield Studios in Wales, sort of towards the end of the
end of 99 or
yeah, and we were sort of finishing up the first album there, I guess. Yeah. We were all outside. It was a crystal clear night. Somebody went outside and said, "You got to come out here and see this." We all sort of took a break and went outside, and we looked up, and it was like a galaxy of stars up there. So I know it's kind of like cheesy to say that, but there is a certain element of truth in the lyrics.
This really nice acoustic song, and then I stuck some guitars that I'd written when I was about 16 on it, and it fitted, and then it just really came together. I mean, I can't really understand it, why.
was called Yellow. So then I took my turn. Oh, what a thing to have done. And it was all yellow. Your skin, oh yeah, your skin and bones turn into something beautiful. And you know I love you so. You know I love you so. It's true. Look how they shine for you. 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 Look how they shine. Look at the stars. Look how they shine for you. And all the things that you do.
Yellow would give Coldplay their first top 10 hit. Johnny Buckland again.
We had Time Off, my most rock and roll moment, when it came in the charts at number 4. I was in a swimming pool in the south of France.
And America suddenly noticed the band too. One early fan was US DJ Nick Harcourt.
Well, I think the first thing, obviously, was Yellow, which was a song that was made for American radio. When I say made, I mean, not that they set out to make a song for American radio, but when you hear that song and you think about where American radio was at when the album came out, it was just a perfect song for that moment. And, you know, at the end of the day, that's really what it takes to crack America, is that one special song, and Yellow was it.
Oh no, I see a spider web that's tangled up with me, and I lost my head and thought of all the stupid things I'd said.
Chris and Will.
As far as we were concerned, our record was never going to come out in America. We had always assumed that to do anything in America, you had to really start at complete grassroots, and that's why a lot of people could never kind of summon up the energy to do it, because it's a big place and there's a lot of people and a lot of little bars you have to play in order to get any kind of recognition. But we were lucky because this song had gone to radio, and so the first gig we played was in Portland, I think, or Seattle.
The first gig we played was in
the Universal Amphitheatre, yeah.
For K-Rock.
But then on our own tour, it was like 500 or 600 people, and we thought, oh, this isn't too bad.
And we were also doing these radio festivals, and the way that America changed us is very specific, because we were playing this thing called the HFS Festival and another one called the WBCN Rock Festival. River Rave. This was in the summer of 2000, and Yellow was a hit in England and stuff, and we were pretty shy still and a little bit embarrassed about performing in front of people, because we sort of thought, well, no one likes it. And we went and we played these radio festivals with the heaviest bunch of bands in the world. We were playing with Korn and with Stained, with Aerosmith,
System of a Down, people like this. There were like metalheads in the audience, and they were going for us, and it was terrible. And I remember getting onto the bus after that and thinking, right, I've got two choices. Either we just pack up and go home and I go back to college or something, or I just admit to other people other than myself that I think we're the greatest band in the history of man, and that every performance we do, we have to try and change people's lives, and we have to try and make music that makes people feel things, and unashamedly so. We have to just get on with what we do without any shame and with just total confidence, because
if people don't believe us when we're on stage, how can we expect them to be able to enjoy the music? So the next night we went to Atlanta to play our own gig in a place called the Tabernacle, and we learned how to play Georgia on My Mind, and we tried this new approach of just losing ourselves in performing, you know, just totally immersing ourselves in the music that we knew that we believed in. And it just was immediately the best concert we'd ever done and the most rewarding concert we'd ever done. And then we started going running, and we started having no shame about the fact that we wanted to become a great, great band. And we still do, and we still want to work as hard as that. We still go running, and we're still desperate to make every single person in the room have the best evening's entertainment they've ever had. That's how it changed us.
I'm Steve Lamacq, and this is Hello, We Are Coldplay on BBC Radio 2. After touring Parachutes for 2 years, the exhausted team went back into the studio to begin album number 2, A Rush of Blood to the Head. Johnny Buckland.
In My Place was there from literally the first rehearsals after we'd finished Parachutes. I think it came very quickly. We wrote the rest around that one, and then, you know, wrote some more and some more.
In my place, were lines that I couldn't change. I was lost, oh yeah.
Assisted by producer Ken Nelson, Coldplay would seek inspiration at Parr Street Studio in Liverpool.
We'd done some sessions in Mayfair in London, and we had like 6 songs that we really loved, and Johnny and I were on the train on the way up listening, and we were like, you know, some of this is brilliant and some of this is just not good enough. We've got one life here and we've got one opportunity, and why can't we try and be the Beatles? So me and John had that conversation. Then we went up to Parr Street, and instead of going to the big studio there, we went into the tiny studio. Ken said, well, we'll just go upstairs to this small room. So we said, okay. And once we went up there, we just started writing furiously, and just really the same thing that's happened on all 3 albums is that suddenly something changes and we become incredibly obsessed, and we start spending all our time together.
It was a weird time because Chris had just lost his voice and couldn't speak for about 2 months just before that. And so, it was very strange. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing because we didn't know whether we'd get his voice back or, you know, we were just in rehearsal rooms, and it was really a nightmare in rehearsal rooms with somebody who can't speak, who wants to tell you what he wants you to do.
In the form of whistles.
I remember having an argument upstairs in the cafeteria of this rehearsal room, and the 3 of us were all shouting, and he'd just be furiously scribbling away on his pad of paper.
The first single, In My Place, would be a taster for what was becoming the now delayed second album. Will and Chris.
In My Place had come out, hadn't it, when we played Glastonbury, when we headlined Glastonbury of 2002. And me and Guy were talking about this yesterday, and it seems like almost like a foolish move to do it, like, because we headlined Glastonbury on the Friday night without anyone having heard the album.
Our second album.
Yeah. But they'd heard one song, they'd heard In My Place, had been out on radio for like a week or something before that. And there was a period when we thought, well, we should probably cancel it because the album wasn't finished. Originally the album would have been out before then. And we just thought, no, let's just do it. And it was incredible.
You've got to hand it to Michael and Emily Eavis, because looking back, that was a crazy thing for them to do. To let us do that. It was crazy. But it did inspire a hell of a lot of the album.
That I couldn't change, and I was lost, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Emily Eavis would convert her father, Glastonbury Festival overlord and farmer, Michael Eavis.
I kind of have a funny job of playing Michael music that I get into, and sometimes he plays it to me too, so it's kind of joint effort. But I first heard Yellow, and it was at that moment I just thought it was amazing. It was something really simple about it, but lovely. And I just sort of played it to him. And it's really hard to pin Michael down. Like, he's always running round before the festival, just hectic. And I said, you've got to listen to this song. And he was like, no, I can't. And I was like, no, stop. Just stop and listen to this song. And I put it on, and he was like, this is good. They'd already done the 99 set at that point. But it was from there that we kind of like got quite behind it at Glastonbury.
Michael Eavis.
2001, when they came from Paris to do the Pilton party for me, it was a last-minute thing. And driving from the airport, I picked them up at about 8:30 in the evening. I had to go on the stage about 9. So I shot them back from the airport at Bristol to Pilton. And the Pilton party was packed, about 4,000 people. We do that every year, fundraiser for the village. As a Pilton fete, really. It's the village fete, really. So I got Chris to do that because I was stuck. Because I hoped to get the Strokes, and the Strokes couldn't make it. You know, turn around, he was in the back seat. I turned around and said, you fancy headlining the Friday next year, you see? He said, turn around, he said, look at the road, you know, because I was talking to him and I was driving. So he said, you're not serious. I said, yeah, I am serious. You know, the Friday night headlining spot is yours for Coldplay. And he said, oh, God, Michael. He said, that'd be absolutely terrific. And then I got a phone call from Phil, the manager, and Phil said that Chris is a bit nervous about headlining. I said, no way. I said, come on, he's got to do it. You know, he's got to do it now because I've got it all sorted. And I've turned down loads of bands for that slot, and I've given it to him, and I can't change my mind now. And just if he is nervous, you know, so what? You know, we're not bothered. So then Phil came back to me and said, look, could he go on sort of 2 or 3 below the top one, because they're easier for him, wouldn't be so much pressure on it, you see. And I said, no, you've got to headline it, for God's sake. It's all done and dusted. So he came to me and he said, okay, so Chris is going to do it. And of course, that was fantastic, that Friday night in 2002.
For a band to play a headline slot on a Friday night on the main stage without any sight of a record coming out, it was still on the back of the first record, which was out in 2000, so we're talking like 2 years later. We'd never done that before. And so it was an amazing moment, because it put all the pressure was on them, and they're playing new songs to a new audience that they hadn't heard before, and it just took off. It was just incredible. It was really good.
Coldplay's third appearance at the Glastonbury Festival, headlining the main stage in 2002, would be a pivotal moment in the band's career.
Your skin, your skin. This is called Yellow.
Yeah, we'd never seen the laser before. So, I mean, I remember looking at Guy, and both of us were staring backwards at this huge laser.
It was incredible, because we didn't know, we weren't really expecting. We were told, oh, you've got this laser light, and you know it's going to come on during clocks. And we were like, oh, all right, whatever. but it was like something out of, you know, Buck Rogers.
We'd been told about this laser, but our lighting director said, "Yeah, we've got this here, laser. Oh yeah, it's incredibly powerful." Like, yeah, whatever, Brian. And then when we started playing clocks, this thing just emerged out of the back of the stage, and then apparently it goes for something like 25 kilometres. You can see that laser from. So that felt like a big deal then.
Debs Wild again.
I remember so vividly, we were staying in a hotel, and it was kind of a very weird atmosphere of nerves, yet excitement, and also waiting. I mean, that's a long wait when you get up on the Friday morning and you're not playing till, you know, late at night. But the mood was really good, and the gig was just phenomenal. I mean, I remember sitting on someone's shoulders and just singing my head off to In My Place and not feeling the slightest bit like I had anything to do with it. It was just amazing to see the reaction that they got.
I think if that gig had gone badly, I don't know where we'd be now. You know, we'd be either working in a shoe shop or, you know, playing very small venues to very few people. I think it would have destroyed our confidence. It was really make or break for us.
And with a rush of blood to the head came even more international success.
I subsequently saw them at Madison Square Garden and thought it was like watching someone bigger than U2. It was just amazing to see the rise from, as I said, 4 poor students to superstars. Incredible.
After being told that as a British band you can't make it in America, I think we really sort of just gritted our teeth and said, right, well, you know, we're going to show that it is possible. And so it was really just a nice way of saying to us that, you know, your efforts have paid off.
And Brian Wilson came as well. We met him afterwards, which was amazing. He's a big hero.
We all sang the warmth of the sun in the dressing room together afterwards.
I remember hearing that Jack Nicholson came to a gig, and I'm sure I saw a man in sunglasses with a wide grin, but
there was a guy, Nick Harcourt, who is a DJ in America who sort of heard our record and really liked it, and he really championed us and played us on KCRW, which was his radio station, and so we've got a lot to thank him for as well.
They were really bona fide rock stars, really, after the second album. Well, I think one of the things that Coldplay realized right from the start is that in America you've really got to spend the time here and log in those road hours.
I've seen them 4 times in the States now, and the first time was in a small club radio show. And you know, it wasn't the best gig ever, but the next night Madison Square Garden was the best gig ever. And then now to see them a few years on doing the new stuff on a big stage headline festival, and the fans were screaming and singing and doing anything he asked them to do, but they just wanted to touch him and just screaming like it was, you know, a boy band type of scream. You know, we don't tend to scream at Coldplay in the UK. It's very, very weird.
They've toured America so much, and they did put the hard work in. I think one thing they realise is no matter how good your record is, if you don't go over and live over there and play all these places in middle America, then you're not going to sell any records. It just doesn't work like that. It's like Europe as a whole, isn't it? America's just like the whole of Europe. So it's kind of like trying to break Europe at the same time as doing there. But you know, it's amazing how it worked. I don't know how it did, but it did.
Which brings us to the difficult third album. Chris Martin.
The only thing that makes us want to come off tour is when we have new songs that we're desperate to record. So we finished in Mexico City in September of 2003.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Johnny and myself went straight to Chicago to start recording. But I don't think we were actually ready. You know, it took us a while to, you know, to get used to not having that adrenaline rush of playing live every day. But we went in and some of the songs that we had then, you know, made it on the record, so it wasn't a waste of time by any means.
Chris and I started immediately after finishing the tour in the middle of 2003 in Chicago. We did a few weeks there just to basically lay down demos of stuff we'd already written, and but we ended up sort of working from those demos, then coming back to London, meeting up with Guy and Will, and doing more and more, and basically going about it in a kind of weird way, in that we'd never really played the songs together. We were trying to record them. Well, we did that for quite some time, really, probably about 10 months. Then we realised that none of it a lot of it sounded like we'd never played it together. Had no atmosphere, no sort of tension in it.
The dynamics, it just sounded flat, because we were working, individually. Chris would come in and lay down his part, and then Will would do his drums, and then go, and then, so on and so on. And it came to a point where we realised we weren't really working as a band anymore, and it could have been just session musicians going in there, and...
except crap session musicians.
Crap session musicians. And so what we had to do is really find ourselves again as a band, and remember what it was like to just be in, Johnny's bedroom with a few guitars and amps, and just really go back to basics. And then that's when things started to really happen.
If you ever feel like something's missing, things you never understand.
Chris, Johnny, Will and Guy would draft in producer Danton Supple to build on the work of their former long-term producer, Ken Nelson.
The previous method had been of Chris going in, maybe laying down the song on a piano with vocals, and then people coming and doing their parts to it. But actually being in a room and playing as a band from the word go, everyone's parts slightly sort of shift to fit, and you get a much better idea of the song as a whole, I think. And also things like the tempo, how it feels for everyone to play, rather than what might feel right for a piano part might not be right when everything goes in. So no, it was great. I mean, for me, the rehearsals were fantastic, because you're having your own Coldplay concert. Just, admittedly, it's the same song again and again, but it was great. I loved it.
Maybe you get what you want, maybe you stumble upon everything you ever wanted in a permanent state.
People said, "Oh, did you split up with Ken Nelson?" And the answer is absolutely not. We did a year's work with Ken, and we did about 8 months with Danton. And the stuff that's on the record, which we did with Ken, is stuff that we're very, very, very proud of, and where we think that we were all pushing ourselves, including Ken. He's an incredible producer.
We spent that first year with Ken sort of writing and arranging all the songs, but what we didn't have was definitive recordings of them.
We were suddenly getting this incredible feeling again. We were like, well, why are we getting this incredible feeling? And Guy or Will said, well, it's because we're playing together in a room. And there's no technology in here, there's no assistants or producers or managers or groupies or anything like that. And it was just feeling amazing.
X and Y's first single was going to be this song, Talk.
Quite an interesting story behind Talk, really, because it's the first time we've used a melody from someone else's music, and it takes the melody from Kraftwerk's Computer Love.
Kraftwerk are quite mysterious people. I had no idea if they knew who Coldplay were, so I had to basically explain myself in the same way that I would have had to do when I was a 13-year-old schoolboy. So I was like, "Dear Ralph, my name is Chris Martin, I'm 28. I sing in a band called Coldplay, blah, 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 blah." And I drew a little picture. It was great, and it was a pen pal letter. And then, luckily, there was a German guy in the studio who translated it into German, so I wrote it out again in German. Lieber Ralph, ich bin ein Coldplayer. And we wrote to him, and I thought, well, this is never going to happen. Everyone subsequently said it was extraordinary that they said yes, and they did say yes, and we're forever grateful.
You can take a picture of something you see.
Coldplay are a collaborative outfit. They all share songwriting credits, and working as this tight team, the new songs soon began to flow.
I regard songwriting as being like fishing, in that you can have all the right equipment and you can know what you're doing, but you really have no control on the size of fish which comes to you and when it bites and all that stuff. I'm gonna stop the analogy now because it's getting boring, but there's no such thing as a Chris Martin song. Every song that is on the record has had the stamp of all of us on it, even if it's Will saying, I'm not going to come in till 2 minutes 30, or Guy saying, I'm not going to come until 1 minute, whatever, you know. Sometimes people not playing is a sign of them having done their...
I'm the best not playing drummer in the world.
Yeah, you're the
no
best.
one doesn't play like me.
You do the best gaps I've ever heard.
Chris's friend and musical confidant, Danny McNamara from Embrace.
Specifically on this album, when he played it me just before Christmas, they were talking about actually mastering it before Christmas. And I said that I thought that would be a mistake, because although the work that they'd done in that previous month, where they basically re-recorded the entire album and mixed it, was fantastic and had really improved it, they needed a bit of time to reflect and change a few things and do some more writing, I felt. Initially it was like, oh my God, you know, he was so burnt out at that point, you know, that idea, that notion just really sort of hit him. But a couple of days later, I think he'd realised that it was right, that, you know, it was more important that the album was great than he got to the end, you know. The finish line's a really tempting prospect when you're near it.
Johnny Buckland.
It's very important to have your friends come into the studio and have people listen to it, because when someone else is listening to it, not only can you get their opinion, you understand more by seeing someone's reaction, and you know whether you're proud to play it to them or not. You really can tell how you feel about the song when you play it to somebody else.
Making the new record, X and Y, was still a tortuous process for the band. Chris again.
There was a period about 18 months ago where I just felt like everybody hated what we were doing, and we were having some trouble with newspapers and things like that. And I just thought, God, I wonder if we should maybe stop singing about the way we feel about things, stop singing emotional songs, and, you know, maybe start writing about characters or ironic stuff, you know, things like that, or heavily political, you know. Well, we all talked about it, and they said, no, you shouldn't edit yourself. And so the themes that are on the record are just anything that I or we have been thinking about or experiencing. I'd say the strong themes are love and loss and death and excitement and fascination with things we don't understand and are either terrified by or inspired by.
Speed of Sound became the first British single since the Beatles' Hey Jude to go straight into the US top 10 on its release. Coldplay are now officially our most successful band for almost 40 years.
Inevitably, they are going to become an arena band, and I think that the scope of their songs probably fits that.
Every great artist, from Madonna to David Bowie, always changes that little bit. They don't fundamentally change, but they just change some of the kind of aesthetics and some of the sound, and they make it so it's kind of... So it sounds like them, but it's a bit different, and I think that Coldplay can do that, you know, and they have done with this new album.
What I hope is that they keep going on this tangent that they're on. Each record has got more passionate and involving than the last one. The thing to do is to just kind of flex your muscles and grow and become more yourself, just burn brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter.
There's more to Coldplay than we've even scratched the surface of yet. There's always that element of wanting to compete with their peers and their heroes, which one and the same thing at the moment.
I have heard him say it's the last one, but then again I heard that at the end of Rush of Blood, so I have no idea. I think River could very easily just keep on going and keep improving. If you look at bands like U2, they've managed it.
We're going everywhere because we have a lot to do, and Glastonbury, with doing this here, is just as important as it was last time, but in a different way. And we have just as much to prove, and we have more commitment to what we do because we have more love of what we do, because we realise that some of the things that come along with success aren't necessarily what they were built up to be, but the thing that we got our success with is the most fulfilling thing. playing in Coldplay. So, yeah, how are we going to top it? We won't top it, but it'll be different, and it'll be just as good. I don't know, it'll be better. Who knows? It could be terrible. I'm getting all paranoid now. I started that very confidently.
Thanks for listening. I'm Steve Lamacq, and Hello, We Are Coldplay was a Wise Buddha production for BBC Radio 2.
Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you.